My name's Justin Hayet. I'm a lot. I'm an eternal pessimist, a gay Republican, a loyal friend, and an excellent schmooze. I'm a writer, operator, connector, and allegedly a macher. One night, though, I stumbled upon this old Jewish story of the Lamed Vav Tzaddikim, the 36 anonymous good people whose work would redeem the world. I wondered, do they exist? Can people find them? Could their goodness rub off on me? Is there magic in this world that I just couldn't see? I couldn't resist finding out, so I set off to Israel with a mission. I was going to find these secret souls and hear their stories. We're calling this journey 36. You can find 36 and other podcasts from Soul Shop wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe now.
This is Eitan Weinstein.
And I'm Naor Menninger, and you're listening to Two Nice Jewish Boys.
In collaboration with Australian Jewish News, check them out at ajn.timesofisrael.com. Also in collaboration with Arutz Sheva, israelnationalnews.com. Israel is still licking its wounds from what happened here in May, as thousands of Israeli-Palestinians stormed the streets in violent protests, lynches, and vandalism. With very few people arrested and persecuted and prosecuted, it seems like the repercussions of what happened will continue to resonate in the near future, and nobody truly knows when the next time a match will ignite the explosive barrel on which we're all sitting. In the meantime, Iran is growing stronger by the day and getting closer and closer to the bomb, while America's influence in the Middle East is weakening and Israel is seeking new alliances with unexpected partners like the UAE and Bahrain. To talk about all of this and much more, we invited one of Israel's top experts on the Arab world, both near and far, Dr. Mordechai Kedar. Dr. Kedar has proposed the Palestinian Emirates Plan, which he claims to be the only viable solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Dr. Kedar holds a PhD from Bar-Ilan University, where he's a lecturer and a scholar at the Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies. He's an expert for Arab media, as he's fluent in Arabic and frequently appears in Arabic-speaking TV channels such as Al Jazeera. We are honored to have Dr. Kedar on the show today to talk about everything Israel-Palestinian related, about the Arab world. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure and my honor.
Before we get to the episode, we want you, dear listener, to ask yourself a question. What have you done these past 2 years? You know, the pandemic hit us all really hard. What have you really done other than perfect that matzo ball soup recipe of yours? Nothing. Now, we all want to add purpose and meaning to our life, and we have the way to really, really make your dreams come true. If you're listening, you're likely interested in Israel with hopes of traveling here soon. Well, lucky for you, we've got the scoop on Massa Israel Journey. With an amazing range of life-changing opportunities in Israel, Massa has many, many programs. They've got gap year programs, academics, internships, volunteering, and careers. The pandemic didn't stop them either, promoting options to study remotely while living in Israel. You don't have to be fluent in Hebrew or break your bank account. They even supply partial funding so you can make a positive impact on the world. You can fuel your passion and you can make your travel dreams a reality. Go to massaisrael.org and find out more.
So what is the plan you propose that will bring, finally, the peace upon us?
Well, depends how you define peace. Because in the European definitions, peace means hugs and kisses between nations, cooperation, cultural exchange, everything included. Here in the Middle East, peace is something totally different. It's much closer to non-belligerence. That's all. I'll give you a good example. I was meeting for a couple of years with some diplomats from the Egyptian embassy here in Israel. And one day I asked them, when will the relations between Israel and Egypt will be normalized? Because we have a peace agreement, but everything which we have is the non-belligerence and some cooperations about energy and security. That's all. No academic exchange, no cultural exchange, no economic cooperation, nothing. So I asked them, when will you fill the content into the vessel, which is named the peace agreement? So they look at each other and says, look, you Israelis cannot expect that the relations between us and you will be better and closer than what we have with the rest of the Arab world. Means Arab countries do not cooperate within themselves. I'll give you a good example. The European Union of today is actually a derivative of something which was beforehand, which was the Common European Market. The Common European Market was established already in the end of the 40s in a process to rebuild Europe after the Second World War. And the Europeans understood that if you buy from each other's products, you actually promote everybody. So they established this European common market. And later in the 90s, they upgraded this market into what we see today, the European Union. Here in the Middle East, the Arab League was established in 1945, also towards the end of the Second World War. But until this very day, they have not yet created the United Arab Market. They don't buy from each other. They would rather buy from China, from Japan, from Europe, from other. Why? Because once he told me something, once he said something against me, let him go to hell.
Grudges.
Right. And this is actually what I would say one of the biggest obstacles of the Arab world to become a power which could influence the world politics. Don't forget, here we are talking about 20-something countries with the oil resources which are the biggest in the world. Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, the Emirates, Kuwait, Libya, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Sudan, all are, Algeria as well, all are oil-producing countries. Yet, they have not succeeded to build themselves as a political power which can impose its agenda on others, in spite of the wealth which they all have. Means that because of their inner struggles within the Arab world, they actually nullify each other's power.
Which for us is not necessarily bad news.
Look, even on the issue of Israel, they never were united.
Although today, we diverse a little bit, but today it was published about a huge deal between Israel, Jordan, and the Emirates, about building a mutual resource factories. So that's
look, with Jordan we have
development.
With Jordan and Egypt, by the way, we have what they call QIZ, QIZ, Qualified Industrial Zones, which it's something which was built with America, with the United States, that the manpower is coming from Jordan and in Egypt, in the keys of Egypt. The money comes from Israel, and the products can be shipped to the United States, whatever quantity you produce. This is the dream of every producer, to be able to send to the United States and to sell in the United States all of his products. And the United States was kind enough to give Israel and Jordan and Israel and Egypt this ability to build these keys in order to promote the cause of peace between Israel and Jordan and Israel and Egypt, just to show the others that, hey guys, if you make peace with Israel, you'll also be able to enjoy this ability to produce whatever you like and send it to the States. Of course, it has to be according to the American standards. You cannot sell garbage. But definitely, this is a very good thing. But it didn't influence other countries because they are much less interested in economic development rather than restoring their land or restoring their honor, or all these things which are connected to the Arab culture. And this is why these countries are still struggling for their status.
So how does the Israeli or the Palestinian Emirates Plan solve for this issue?
What happened with the Emirates is that relations between Israel and the Emirates were under the cover for many years. Many years. I myself met with a lawyer who for 15 years already represents Emirati companies here in Israel. And he goes, back and forth to Dubai and to Abu Dhabi, and there's no problem. And they all know that he's Israeli. By the way, he's religious, so he goes around with a kippah. So there were relations, no doubt. Of course, they were under the current, under the cover. And what happened is that President Trump decided that enough is enough. Instead of using Israel as a mistress, you should use Israel as your wife. Okay? So this is actually what he pushed them. The infrastructure for this peace, or cooperation even, large cooperation between Israel and the Emirates, was there already for years. Now, when the relations are open, now you can do much more. Banks can work here and there. Artists. Look, in the coronavirus, we couldn't go to all kinds of cultural events, like singers. And so many Israeli singers went to Dubai, and they were singing there in the clubs or in...
Some never came back. They had such good time. They just stayed there.
Wish them good luck. So they are there.
Yeah.
And
Omer Adam, guys, if you don't know. Yeah.
Why not? Let him be there. So
Really?
it's a free country.
Wow.
And if he makes business and brings some money,
This is a free country.
Yeah. There it's less.
Not so much.
okay.
But okay, so is the Palestinian Emirates Plan leveraging this model? Like, what is the plan itself?
Well, the Palestinian Emirates Plan should be explained. The Arab world actually is more or less sharply divided between successful states and failing states. Failing states, I mean by Syria, Iraq, Sudan, Lebanon today, definitely failing state. Algeria, Yemen, of course. This is on the other side, while the successful states are Kuwait, Qatar, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Ras Al Khaimah, Fujairah, the Emirates. And the question is, why the successful states are successful while the failures are failures? What causes the failure here and the success there? Some would say the oil. But it's not correct, because Iraq is an oil-producing country. So is Libya. So is Algeria. So is Yemen and Sudan. And these countries are failures. While Dubai has no oil and no gas. And Dubai is a success. So evidently it's not the oil and the gas. Because if the oil and the gas was the reason, so Iraq was in heaven on earth. Libya was another kind of heaven on earth. Okay, and Dubai would be a hell on earth. But the situation is totally different. Okay? Dubai is a heaven on earth, while Iraq and Libya are hell on earth. So what is really the reason? The reason is that if you check the social makeup of these countries, the failures, you can find that these countries are comprised of multiple groups, like tribal groups, ethnic groups like Kurds and Arabs, Turkmens, or Berbers in North Africa, religious groups, Muslims, Christians, Yazidis, Druze, Alawis. Only in Iraq there are 10 religions. And sectarian groups, because the Muslims, for example, are divided between Sunni and Shia. Christians are some denominations in Iraq only. And so the societies in these countries are fragmented along tribal lines, ethnic lines, religious lines and sectarian lines. And the state, as a framework, which was supposed to unite them all, failed in this attempt. Because the modern state never succeeded to settle in the hearts of the people and replace the traditional loyalties either to the tribe or to the ethnic group or to the religious or sectarian group.
It was imposed on them by the Europeans.
Right. These are artificial countries or artificial states whose borders were marked either by the British or by the French or by the Italians when it comes to the Libyan case, usually according to the Europeans' interests, not according to local interests. So the state is viewed by most of the people as an illegitimate state because the Europeans mark the borders. Who the heck stuck us Arabs in Iraq with the Kurds? Who wants them? We hate them and they hate us. Okay, this is more or less how people in Iraq are asking about the borders of the country. And the state is held usually by a minority, which was given the weapons, the money, and the power by the British or by the French, and they control everybody with dictatorial means with dungeons of torture, which we all saw in Syria and in Iraq and in Libya and all these things. So the state is illegitimate.
How did it come about that the British chose specific minorities to actually rule? Like the Alawites and Syria?
A colonialist always takes a minority in order to police the majority. Why? The minority will never rebel against the imperialist. The majority might have all kinds of dreams about independence, but a minority will never have. So the minority will always remain loyal to the colonial,
because they're the weaker,
right? Because they depend.
And then when the colonialist backs away, it bites the minority in the ass.
So the state is illegitimate. The laws of the state are modern laws because they have to to deal with the United Nations, all kinds of conventions and all kind of international agreements and so forth, while the population remains in most cases very traditional, very conservative, sticking to their tribal habits and laws and rules, or Islamic. So why should we adhere to the state's dictates? The state is not ours. This is why in these failing countries, Iraq, Syria, and so forth, the state is actually the enemy of most of the people. The only people who feel, comfortable with the state is the ruling elite or the ruling tribe, as it is in Syria, the tribe of the Alawis, which Assad belongs to, or the Dulaimis, the tribe of Saddam Hussein, or the Qaddafis, the tribe of Muammar Gaddafi. So they only are the people who enjoy the state because they control everything and they manage everything in order to serve their own interests.
So where does it meet the Palestinians?
No.
So the
successful states are totally different. Mm-hmm. First of all of the successful states are one consolidated unit, one tribe. Kuwait is based on a tribe named Al-Sabah. Al in Arabic, in this case, is a tribe of Sabah. Qatar is Al-Thani. Abu Dhabi is Al-Nihyan. Dubai is Al-Maktoum. Every emirate has its own Al. And the rules and the laws of the emirate are actually the rules and laws of the tribe. Means legitimate.
Is Saudi Arabia considered in
Wait a
your
minute,
eyes?
I'll give you the answer.
Okay.
The leading elite of these emirates are the same families which were the leaders 200 years ago when they were riding camels in the desert. Okay, so today they ride
Cadillacs.
golden Lamborghinis. Yeah. What's the difference? The camel is 4-on-4. The Lamborghinis as well. The camel has leather seats.
You
And
cannot milk a Cadillac.
And so the Lamborghini has leather seats. So what? The velocity is different. Who cares? So what I mean to say is that they actually are combining the traditional structures of society and modern tools how to run the state. So this is why they are successful, because they adhere to the tradition. They save the tradition. While Syria became socialist, they don't know even how to spell the word socialist, but they became Ba'athist. It's a socialist. So is Iraq, and so did Egypt. And South Yemen, until the mid-90s, was Marxist. They don't even know how to spell the word Marxist, but they claim that they are Marxist. These Yemenite tribes who are going around barefoot, know nothing. Almost everyone is illiterate. So now, tell them about Marxism.
Well, you have audiobooks nowadays, so
right.
That's not longer a problem.
Right. So these European alien ideologies, which tried to settle in the Middle East, totally failed, because they had to kick out the traditional ideologies, means Islam on one side and tribalism on the other side. Now, so since we evidently see that the only thing which works in the Middle East is the system of a tribe, means the emirate, this is what I suggested to solve the Israeli-Palestinian problem with, establishing emirates in Judea and Samaria.
Before we jump into the Palestinian, I want to touch on Saudi Arabia, because I'm trying to understand what's going on there, and I think it's really interesting for our listeners to understand the background.
Is that the tribe of Al Saud, the man who established the kingdom like 100 years ago, he actually incorporated other tribes by marriage. He went to a different tribe with his 200 fighters on young camels with 2 rifles on everybody. And he sat with the head of the tribe which he visited. And he says, look, you have the choice between giving me your daughter, and she will bear you kings, because I'm going to be a king, and your grandchildren will be kings, or else look outside at my friends. They will take care of you.
That was what, 100 years ago or something?
Yeah,
like
even less. The beginning of the 20th century.
Yeah.
So there is no chance that the tribe leader will not agree. So he called his daughter. She could be 8, 9, 10 years old. Anyway, she cannot say no to dad. And he says, okay, pack your things, and you go with this man, and you're going to be his wife. This is how things are being done in the Middle East. And this way, he had dozens of wives. Dozens of wives. And who knows how many children. So this is how he made sure that no tribe will rebel against him. Now, 2 groups in Saudi Arabia didn't join this party. One is the Shia in the eastern part of Saudi Arabia, because a Shia will never give his daughter to a Sunni, because according to the Shia, the Sunnis are impure, najis. So he will never give his daughter to a Sunni. And in the south of Saudi Arabia, in the mountains of Yemen, which part of them belong to Saudi Arabia, there is another population which never joined this party, as you say. Why? Because they have different culture. They have the culture of the mountains, while the King Saud, who established he has the culture of the plain lands, of nomads. Those on the mountains, they don't wander in the space. They live on places, steady places. They don't move from place to place because of the mountains. They occupy a mountain, they sit on top of the mountain, that's it. While the Bedouins in the desert are wandering according to water, according to all kinds of other things. So they didn't... by the way, because of genetic issues, the tribes of the Yemenite mountains are tall. The people are tall, both men and women are rather tall. While the people in the plainlands are short, normal. And there is no way that a man will give his tall daughter to a man who is shorter than her.
Even when she's 8, she's taller than the...
No, she will grow up to be a tall girl, and everybody knows, and because he will divorce her.
Uh-huh.
Because
it's humiliating.
He will not accept a woman who is taller than him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you cannot cut her feet, so they don't get involved with each other. And as a result, since they didn't join the party, the government of Saudi Arabia incorporated them through economic issues, like contracts to develop all kinds of things, to build builders. And the Bin Laden family came from there.
Uh-huh.
This is why the Bin Laden family, first of all, he is very tall. Osama Bin Laden himself is very tall. Part of this genetic issues. And his family is very loyal to the country, very loyal to the state. And they have a construction company which also paves roads and builds bridges and everything. And they have a lot of money. And but one went wrong.
Yeah.
So this is
Every family has one.
I'm not sure the
black
other
sheep.
Bin
he's the
Ladens
black
are...
sheep of the family.
Yeah.
And the Saudi regime knows that most people of the family are loyal, are good people. And they have, he doesn't, means the kingdom does not blame the Bin Laden family for what Osama Bin Laden was doing to him.
There's nature and there's nurture, What can you do?
So this
Okay.
explains why Saudi Arabia managed to be so big, basically, and conquer such an area. Because these tribes that this Al Saud tribe conquered, they actually became part of the tribe
By marriage.
and by
And
birth.
the kings, which we saw through the years, who are all half-brothers, Khaled and Faisal and Fahad and Abdallah and now Salman,
They're all descendants of this Al
they're
Saud
all
guy.
half-brothers, and they are all sons of the founding king from different wives.
Sons.
Sons,
Even
not
Ben
grandsons.
Salman, even MBS.
Salman.
Yes, even MBS is a son of
No. Salman, his father.
Was a
his
son.
father. So he's the grandchild.
He is the grandchild.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually the problem, because all the kings until today have sons.
Yeah.
Why should the last king, Salman, nominate his son? Why skip the other sons of his brothers who were kings already?
Mm-hmm.
Now, don't forget that MBS, first of all, is young. And in tribal societies, you cannot circumvent the old people. The old people have their status. You cannot take a young one and nominate him to be a king.
It's not like in Europe where you had a boy king.
Right. This is one thing. Second thing, MBS never did anything until he was nominated as the crown prince. While his cousins, the sons of the former kings, means Abdallah, Fahad, Khalid, and all these, they were generals in the army. They were ministers in the government. They were ambassadors. They know how to run big businesses. They know how to run policies. They know what budget is. Means they have experience. And they are more or less 60 years old, while he is 30. So, excuse us, that's actually what they say. How come you became the future king?
And then beheaded.
So two quick questions. One, before Al Saud, was Saudi Arabia like Emirates? Were they just a bunch of tribes?
It was a bunch of tribes with no central government. And the Turks, who theoretically control the country, never went into the desert. All they were interested in is the Hijaz. Hijaz is the western coast of Saudi Arabia, where today Jeddah, Mecca, Medina, all these towns in the western part of Saudi Arabia. They never cared about what happens inside the country. And don't forget that until 1900, they didn't know about oil. So they didn't dig for oil and didn't know what this oil, although they have seen flames
coming out of the
of the earth permanently, because there's so much gas that if you have a crack in the ground, the gas goes up, and by the sun it gets burnt, and it can burn forever.
Yeah. And
Wow.
the second, we got to get to the Palestinians. So,
But I want to. The second question is there the way you're describing it? Are we looking at a disintegration of Saudi Arabia in the next 50 to 100 years?
This might happen if the ruling family will not get their act together. If they start quarreling with each other, fighting with each other, they are doomed. But as long as they stick together to each other and remain loyal to each other. Look, the MBS was very problematic because he arrested some 60 of his cousins in Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Riyadh, this like 1,000-star hotel, and he blackmailed them, let them sleep on the ground, on carpets and so forth. This is no behavior which they would accept.
It's not how you treat your cousins.
They are older than you, they are more experienced than you, and they are also sons of kings and emirs. And he did it like a few months after he became the crown prince. Then came the issue of Khashoggi in October 19, which definitely tarnished his image. And his failure in Yemen. He's the one who pushed the war in Yemen.
And the humiliating attacks from Iran.
And getting the humiliating attacks from Iran, which he couldn't answer. Look, the Saudi army is nothing to rely on. And if we think that Saudi Arabia will be a good ally to lean on, this is not.
Okay, now we got to get to the Palestinians. We got to solve the problem.
Okay.
So the Emirates.
What I am calling is to establish 7 Palestinian Emirates in the cities of Judea and Samaria, the Arab cities. One in the Arab part of Hebron, for the clans of Hebron, the Kawasme, Nache, Tamimi, Jabri, Abu Snena. Another emirate in Jericho for the Arikats. Another one in Ramallah for the Barghouti and Tawil and Abu Ain. These are the 3 leading clans of Ramallah. Another one in Shechem, in Nablus, for the Masri, Tukan, and Shaka. And another one in Tulkarem for the Karmis, and so forth, in Jenin and in Kalkilia. And this is in addition to the emirate which was established in Gaza 15 years ago by Hamas. And Gaza is a state, whether we like it or not, whether we admit it or not. And we should start relating to Gaza as a state.
And the rest of the territories will be
annexed to Israel.
Including the Arabs who live there?
Including the Arabs who live there, the villagers.
How many people are those?
Which are more or less 15% of the population.
So what is that, like 150, 200,000? No, more. 300,000.
More like
so you
300,000.
give citizenship and voting rights to hundreds of thousands.
In a process, yes. Why? Because you cannot hold people without citizenship. And this way you actually set free most of the population of Judea and Samaria, while you keep most parts of the country, of the land. And this is some kind
land-wise, what's the percentage?
Around 85%.
Meaning we keep 85% of the West Bank and Samaria?
Yes.
And
the rural areas.
And 15% go to this 85% of the population. So it's inverted.
More or less, yes.
Okay.
It depends, of course, on the lines around every...
But then what happens if they start shooting a rocket from Jenin? Rockets from Jenin or rockets from...
This
then
is
what do we do?
a very good question, but it's not the case. Why? The tribal culture says, and this is very clear, when the clans receive the authority, they have responsibility. When you push them to the margin, means you don't give them the authority, they wouldn't do anything. They will sit aside and wish you good luck. Once they get the authority, means they are on themselves. Nobody can interfere in their issues. They will be responsible because they have to...
Meaning, what happens if...
They will kick out all the jihadists because the jihadists want to introduce the Islamic way of behavior, while the tribes are acting according to the tribal tradition, which is not Islamic.
Why don't we see that in Gaza, though? If Gaza is an Emirate.
Because Gaza was taken over by an organization. By the way, it's a local organization. It's not occupied by Hamas because Hamas are, as we say in Arabic, Abna al-Balad, the sons of the city. They are not foreigners like the PLO, which we brought from Tunisia. From Tunisia. They are legitimate leaders. And this, by the way, the reason why the police in Gaza doesn't walk around with weapons, because they are not afraid of the population.
But what happens if Hamas takes over an emirate in Judea and Samaria?
Again, when the emirate gets the authority from us, they will kick the jihadists away.
They get the status of a state.
Look,
of
don't
a country.
forget that they are surrounded by Israel. Every emirate is surrounded.
I know.
You can tell them, hey guys, you want food? You want water? And we want you to get rid of this and that. Okay, you are here. You are in the powerful side. And you'll tell them, hey guys, this guy is planning all kinds of bad things against us. He's Hamasnik. You get rid of him, and then you get food. We'll open the gates for you.
But then you're marginal. Then you're pushing him to the margin, as you said before.
Well, they will know their limits, and they will know how to behave.
But there will be sovereign...
In the Middle East, you have to be decisive. Because otherwise, people step on you. And in other cases, they will spit on you. Because in the Middle East, people appreciate decisiveness.
And those Emirates will have the status of an independent state. Right. And so all the Palestinians who live in Jordan, in Lebanon, in Syria, they'll be able to come back to those Emirates?
First of all, they will not accept them. They will accept in the Emirates only their brothers.
Right.
Means those who belong to the tribes or to the clans of this, they will allow them coming back if they want. They will not accept other clans. Only because they are refugees from Hadera or from Jaffa.
Right.
Okay? Because tribalism is still alive and kicking, and if not also alive and killing. So here we are. This is the solution which fits the culture of the Middle East, which is based on the culture of the clan or the tribe.
It's a very interesting proposal. One thing I didn't understand, though, is that you suggested sort of enclosing several clans in the Hebron area and Ramallah. There's 3, you said, in
Hebron
one
there are
emirate.
5. In Hebron there are 5.
So in one emirate.
And they have what they call Mahkama Ashairiyya, means a tribal court. A court.
They know how to manage
means
between themselves.
They send the representatives to this council, and they sit and discuss everything until they find solution.
This is in Hebron and
Hebron.
also in Ramallah, and
Yeah,
the
in
clans
every
you
place.
mentioned have already organized
Of
within.
course, they're organized always.
But they organized according to that division that you just made.
Because they live together and they have to manage with each other, and this is why they have these courts or these councils. They call in Arabic another name Jaha. Jaha is the group of old people, sheikhs, who gather whenever there is a problem. If somebody killed by mistake somebody else, immediately the Jaha assembles in order to kill the fitna, kill the problem in its cradle, as they call it.
That's interesting.
Qatl fitna fil mahd.
So I want
before it becomes a big problem of blood revenge, let's solve it when it is small, and usually it's by compensations.
I want to take us back to what we spoke about in the intro. So that solves, let's say, the West Bank and Judea and Samaria. I'm assuming that most of the Arab world in Israel also are descendants of clans that existed here.
Right. Every Arab village is an emirate. Factually.
So do we have a problem there?
Look, the Arab sector in Israel usually lives in towns, in neighborhoods and villages, which are, most of them are Arabs only. There are some mixed cities like Acre, like Lod,
Haifa.
like Haifa, like Ramla. But most of the people live in one group or one ethnic group which lives by itself. Every one of them can be defined as an emirate. Not officially, but factually. They do whatever they like. They build whatever they like. They employ whoever they like, means even if it is above the number of employees which they are allowed to have according to the rules of the Ministry of Interior. As you know, according to the size of the city or town or
you mean the
local
municipality.
You cannot, if you have a local authority of 10,000 people, that's 10,000 residents, you cannot have 2,000 clerks or officers, okay? There is a chart which says, according to your population, you can have such and such number of employees. They, in most cases, have double. Why double? Some of them were nominated by the former mayor, and recently they have another mayor from another clan. So he has to bring in his clan because he doesn't rely on the other clan, but he cannot fire the others. So he has to pay salaries to the one half which works and the one half which sits at home. Because
we pay the salaries.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, but the government shuts up because the government prefers to, only recently, the municipality of Taibe was given a moratorium of, like, if I remember the number, 67 million shekel, which is like $20 million. They just erased all these debts because these debts are from this kind of uncontrolled
so what do we do? What do we do? I mean, again, like Ethan says, after what happened in May, we have so many problems with 1 million Israeli citizens who define themselves Arab Palestinians, and you want to bring in 300,000 more. We can't handle those we have.
Well, the alternative is to establish a Palestinian state, which will be as successful as Syria, Iraq, Libya, Yemen, and so forth. Don't forget that the PA had elections in 2006, and Hamas actually won that elections. And until this very day, since it was the so far last elections in the PA, since 2006 until now, it's 15 years, Hamas still has the majority of the seats of the Palestinian Legislative Council. So it can happen again. It means Hamas could take the Palestinian country or Palestinian state by voting or by force, as they did in Gaza in June of 2006, of 2007. Okay? So either by elections or by coup d'etat, Hamas will control the Palestinian state. Inevitably. Either or. Choose the way. Okay? So who with the right mind will establish a Palestinian state which can turn into another Hamastan either by elections or by coup d'etat?
But what do we do with all the Palestinian citizens of Israel then?
Well, this is another
You
opera.
thought you'd come here and solve
This-
just one problem. We want you to solve them
The
all.
whole thing.
This is another problem. And you know what? Let me tell you something. With the time,
Were you surprised in May when you saw the lynches and the riots and
yes,
you were surprised?
yes, because of course I had the explanation. The riots were some kind of jihad, no doubt, and this is how we should call it. You know, a spade should be named a spade. And this was a street jihad, because jihad, as you know, the war for Islam, has all kinds of manifestations. Economic jihad is the BDS. Sword jihad is what we saw, the war. We have media jihad. It's the Al Jazeera or Al Manar of Hezbollah or Al Alam of the Iranians. This is kind of media jihad. Or social media jihad, that they have all kinds of websites and
Hackers.
Facebook hackers. They use the social media as a kind of jihad, because jihad is actually what we say in Hebrew, hishtadlut. Effort, which
Struggle.
I would say hard effort. And this is actually what jihad. Jihad could have all kinds of manifestations. You know, the arsons, the fires which they set in groves and in forests. This is another kind of jihad in order to burn the country on the Jews.
So you weren't surprised.
Stealing cars. Once I spoke to a car dealer. His friends are stealing the cars and he sells them after he changes the license plate. So he says, what do you mean? You occupied my country, I take your cars. Well, where is the problem? You stole my country, I steal your cars.
When you put it that way.
My country was more than your car, so I still have more to steal.
And yet they burned a hotel and burned a person
My
to
friend,
death.
Abi Hareven, my friend
Yeah.
was burned to
You
death.
knew him.
Of course. He was a member in Bessa Center in Bar Ilan, where I'm also a member. And I knew him personally. We
Wow.
met in many conferences. We spoke much. So definitely, you see this all kinds of manifestations of jihad. And look, in Al Jazeera, there was a program named Al Sharia wal Hayat, means Sharia and life, Sharia law and life. The one who presented this program was the Sheikh Yusuf Qaradawi, the head of the Muslim Brotherhood. Until recently, now he's not well, but for many years he was the speaker and the leader of the Muslim Brotherhood. In the beginning of the Intifada, more or less in the 2000 or 2001, he was sitting in his studio, and towards the end of the program, they let phone calls to ask all kinds of questions about the Islamic law. So one of the days, when the Intifada was already here, a lady calls, and she says from Syria, she lives in Halab, and she sees on TV day and night what the Zionists are doing to the poor Palestinians. She has 7 kids. She cannot go and fight against the Israelis. There's no money to give to the Palestinians. She has nothing. What can she do? That's what she's asking. For the jihad of the Palestinians. How can she support them? So he says, look, in your prayers to Allah, please ask Allah to support the Palestinian jihadists. And this will be jihad of the prayer. This is another kind of jihad with a prayer.
So maybe this is why the May events happened.
Pray for the success of the jihadists. If this is all you can do it, and this is okay. And this actually what Qaradawi said to this lady. Mm-hmm. So here we are. The jihad is the struggle of Muslims in general in Islam in order to promote Islam and to set all the other religions back.
Is it fair to say, and we're probably going to get a lot of backlash for this, but is it fair to say that jihad is the freedom of the Arab world? Like freedom
Islamic
is
world.
Yeah, like freedom is the
No.
is the highest value in the Western world.
Jihad is the war, the religious, the sacred war,
Yeah.
which Muslims can wage against others in order to occupy their lands, in order to occupy their bodies, especially their daughters' bodies, and to occupy their assets.
Yeah,
You
that's
mean
what I'm saying.
the
What I'm saying is,
value.
as freedom is to the West, as freedom is to America, right? Americans grow up and they are
There is
taught,
no
they are
freedom.
educated.
No, you don't get 1 minute.
The Americans are educated on the most Americans grow up where the most important value in their mind is freedom. That's what they're taught, right? The Constitution, we the people, free speech. I'm wondering if in the Islamic world, it's fair to say that most Islamic kids in the Arab world grow up thinking jihad is the most important value.
Definitely, because first of all, freedom is nothing in Islam. Of course, they will tell you that all men were born free, yes, but free to worship Allah. If you don't worship Allah and adhere to His orders, you lost your freedom. Your freedom is only as long as you worship Allah and fulfill His commandments. And commandments are prayer, give money to the poor people, go to Hajj, fast on Ramadan, and going to jihad. And jihad, again, could be all kinds of jihad. It could be economic jihad, could be media jihad, could be jihad by the sword, and all kinds of others.
So there's nothing we can do. Those people have jihad implemented in their souls, and we just need to sit and wait to the next.
No, we have to,
Be
first of all,
slaughtered?
to understand it. And once we understand it, we can tell them, hey guys, it's your choice. Either you live in peace with us, and according to the Islamic tradition, there is a way to live in temporary peace with the infidels. This is based on a precedent which Muhammad already had temporary peace with the infidels of Mecca. So, and this temporary peace will last only as long as the enemy is too powerful and too dangerous to mess with. So, if we are powerful and too dangerous to mess with, temporary peace will be signed. And if we are powerful and dangerous forever, we will have temporary peace forever. Why do you
Nice.
laugh?
No, it's good. I like it. I like the approach. It's very pragmatic.
It's pragmatic. It's adjusting your expectations to their abilities. Yet, you can impose your agenda on them if you are powerful and
It's a big if.
and decisive and too dangerous to mess with.
And if not,
You are doomed by a way or another. Like the Europeans today. They let all these Muslims in, and the Muslims are taking the European countries by birth. It will take a generation, 2 generations, maybe 3, and Europe is doomed. No doubt.
Just look at the numbers, right?
Right?
yeah.
And the growing
They
numbers.
hide the numbers. Like in France, they hide the numbers. So
But the birth rate of the Muslim community in Europe is probably above 1,
10 times
right?
the...
And the birth rate of Europeans is below
Negative, of course.
negative. And so
Yeah.
you give it 100 years and Europe is Muslim
course,
again.
No doubt.
The quiet jihad.
jihad, yeah.
No, they call it the
Jihad of
the
kids.
hijrah. The hijrah jihad.
They have a name for it.
The jihad of migration.
Wow.
And in the States, I saw a document talks about settlement jihad. Means to settle in the States, to become a citizen, to establish all kinds of organizations, and to promote the Islamic cause. And this is a settlement jihad.
You know, last story before we wrap things up. I was now in Germany, and in one of the cities in Leipzig, in the square, you go out of the city is silent. You know, it's so peaceful, so polite. You don't hear car wonks or anything.
Yeah, I know.
But then you go out from the train station there, and in the big square, there's a huge tent of Islamists. with music, loud music, and, you know, in the face of the Germans, converting people to Islam with huge inscriptions in Arabic. And I'm like, this country is doomed. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
They bought them without any restriction, hoping that there will come Germans at the end of the day. Some of them did, but many of them have not.
Okay, we got to wrap things up. You have books, many books. People can buy them on Amazon.
No, I wrote, unfortunately, only one book.
Okay.
Because I realized that people do not read books.
Okay.
People are watching clips. People are listening to podcasts like yours. People are reading maybe articles on websites. And this, if you want to be influential, get away from books. Because books are... I wrote only one, which is a derivative of my doctoral thesis. It was published in 2005 by Sussex Academic Press. And the title is in Assad in Search of Legitimacy, Message and Rhetoric in the Syrian Press under Hafez and Bashar.
Interesting.
Very interesting, but still restricted to those who want to know about Syria.
But you have many lectures on YouTube.
Many lectures and articles and so forth.
So just write on YouTube, Mordechai
Kedar, just Google it. And
you have plenty of lectures. You have plenty of interviews that are also in, as we mentioned in the intro, on Arab-speaking television channels, which I think is fascinating. People
they keep inviting me. First of all, because I'm speaking Arabic. Secondly, because I give them the show. Because they want a show. Even if I represent Israel and Zionism and so forth.
You're the resident Jew.
Yes, I am not the image which they always have about religious Jew, which doesn't know how to mumble in Arabic.
Not to mention you're the darkest Polish guy I've ever seen.
Of course, thank you. So, especially with my white hair. But for them, it is some kind of a challenge. I know it. In Al Jazeera, they were inviting me in order to defeat me on air. Okay? Or to use me as a punching bag.
They've yet to succeed.
In my case, the bag punches back. But
and you're on like social media. How can people? You do lectures. How can people reach out to you if they're interested in a lecture?
Just write to me by email.
Okay.
Kedar.tour, KEDAR.TOUR @gmail.com. And this is my email address.
Also,
which
Zoom
I use for
events.
Zoom, definitely. Okay. This is the email which I use for foreign events like tour, lecture tours and so forth.
Perfect.
Amazing.
Thank you so much for coming. Before we go, we are in collaboration with Arutz Sheva. Check them out at israelnationalnews.com. Also,
this episode is sponsored by Massa Israel Journey, massaisrael.org. Check them out at massaisrael.org for wonderful opportunities in Israel. GAP programs, academic programs, internships, volunteering. Check them out, massaisrael.org. You can really, really find an amazing way to visit Israel and to make your dreams come true.
Last but not least, Australian Jewish News, ajn.timesofisrael.com, and we accept donations and buy our mugs at 200b.com/merch. And this is it. Thank you so much, Dr. Kedar.
Pleasure, my honor.
See you next time.
Thank you.
Guys.
Bye, guys.